Okay, hi Jim, how are you?
I'm fine, Douglas. How are you doing?
Doing great, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here. So, we're going to be talking about your book today, Trust and Confidence. Let's see, Inside the Battle Between the Secret Service and Ken Starr. I was curious when I read your bio, with all of the political scandal that we're currently embroiled in, why did you choose to go back 30 years and pick this one?
I didn't do that. I started this in November of 2007, and it was really quite by accident. I had written a previous book called "What Do You Stand For," in which I sent out this questionnaire to a variety of people. What do you stand for? What principles do you live by? And then describe a moment of principle in which your convictions were tested. And among the people who responded was former director Louis Merletti. One thing led to another. There was a possibility of a documentary being done, and I pulled out three people to potentially interview for this, and Merletti was one of them. I talked to a producer about this who said, if we get involved in this, you're going to have to interview these people first. So that's when I was coming back from a talk on the East Coast, and I stopped off at Merletti's office in Cleveland, and we recorded a 3-hour interview, and that began the process of working on the book and searching the National Archives, the independent counsel files in the National Archives, interviewing a number of people. And it was just, a very long process. I had no idea it would take this long to do. This is the 25th anniversary of the Starr investigation. And I think this is important information that fills a big gap on the history of the independent counsel.
I'm trying to think what exactly the outcome of all of this was, because they did try to impeach him. They got the votes, but they didn't have enough to kick him out of office, and then it just kind of disappeared.
Let me back up here and refresh everybody's memory of this. This took place in 1998 at the height of the Clinton Lewinsky investigation. An independent counsel, Kenneth Starr, he compelled agents on the president's protective detail to testify about what they may have seen or heard regarding Clinton's relationship with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. Secret Service Director Lou Merletti argued that to give such testimony in court would violate the trust and confidence tenet necessary for agents to do their job and protect the president. If the president knew that they would be revealing such confidences, such personal conversations, they would likely push away protection. And that was vital to the tenet of the Secret Service. You can't push away protection. He's going to be assassinated in some way or form. That's what the public knew. What the public did not know, and what I discovered, was the fact that Starr relied on an anonymous source inside the Secret Service who alleged that Merletti had a deal with Clinton in exchange for becoming director. He had to keep quiet about knowing anything about Lewinsky. But what the source alleged mostly was the fact that Merletti went to the White House at night, removed the president, put him in the back seat of a car, covered him with a blanket, and took him to a hotel to meet with Lewinsky. Now, all of this was false. As far-fetched as that sounds, that's what Starr and his prosecutors believed, despite no corroboration, and the source never wanted to come forward and testify. So I thought this was just an astounding story that I had never heard before. And searching through the independent counsel files, while I found a great many documents regarding the Secret Service, I never found anything to corroborate this story. The only thing I discovered that connected up some of the dots was a letter in one of the files, in one of the deputies' files, where there's a letter directly addressed to Ken Starr that talked about Secret Service protocols and how to trace the comings and goings of the president and Lewinsky. And it was signed, ironically enough, Douglas, Deep Throat. But
Deep throat.
this was like a reverse Deep Throat. Have you heard anything that crazy before?
No, not really.
Deep Throat originally came to everybody's knowledge during the Watergate era, and he was the secret source inside the executive branch who would feed information to reporters Woodward and Bernstein about different leads that they should follow. And he was a legitimate source, even though he was wrong on a few things. He helped the reporters steer their investigation in the right direction. So that's where the name comes from. But in Merletti's case, this was a completely false individual who was feeding Starr and his prosecutors false information.
To throw them off what really happened?
Right. And nothing like this happened with Merletti. He took no part in facilitating the Clinton Lewinsky investigation. He was just there fulfilling his mission to protect the president.
Okay, so do we know what really happened?
What really happened with regards to what?
His affair with Lewinsky. If he wasn't going to her, then she was coming to him, right?
Yeah, everything happened in the White House itself. That's all been documented, everything. This other side story was what Starr and his prosecutors believed, that Director Merletti was involved in taking Clinton out of the White House and taking him to a hotel. That there was no truth to that whatsoever. It never came out in the Starr Report. It never came out in news reports. It's not even, and even Ken Starr doesn't talk about it in his memoir when that came out a couple of years ago. So it was a completely false allegation, but they still pursued trying to find out if this was real.
Okay, so what was the basis of the impeachment on Clinton? It wasn't the actual act with Lewinsky.
The impeachment was all based on the fact that Clinton and Lewinsky both lied to a grand jury. And if you lie to a grand jury, you're open to being prosecuted for lying to federal authorities. The bottom line is they were out to get Clinton any way they could. And they were in the process of wrapping up their investigation. Remember, about Whitewater, about Vince Foster, about Travelgate, about all these different things, and they produced nothing. There were no results that could stick to Clinton that were legitimate, or that could prove that he was involved in any kind of criminal activity, until Starr and his investigators got a late night call from Linda Tripp, who had mentioned that a Pentagon co-worker that she had, Monica Lewinsky, had an affair with Clinton. And that just completely lit up their whole investigation, and they got completely involved in this. And that's what they were focused on. They were focused on getting Lewinsky to flip, to admit that she lied on her affidavit and that she was having an affair, contrary to what Clinton testified to. And they were interested in learning from Merletti that this deal actually existed, where he facilitated the Clinton-Lewinsky relationship. So they tried to impeach him because he lied. That was the whole basis of everything, about an affair.
Can we talk just a little bit about impeachment, generally speaking? When you go back to the Nixon impeachment, they had votes on both sides of the aisle that they could have impeached him if he hadn't resigned. And they probably could have removed him from office.
Right.
With the Clinton one, it was basically 100% Republican. And with the Trump, two of them, it was basically 100% Democrat. So do you think that the Clinton one sort of started this idea of using impeachment just because we don't like the guy and we want to get him out, so let's do that? Now they're starting with Biden.
Right.
And people are just going to, I don't know, they're going to discredit the impeachment process as something politically motivated and not take it very seriously.
That's a good question, and I don't have a clear answer about that. I know when the impeachment issue was raised in Nixon's case, they clearly had evidence that he was trying to use the levers and powers of government for his own means. I mean, all that stuff was documented in Woodward and Bernstein's book, All the President's Men. With Clinton, it appeared to me to be a political move to impeach Clinton. They were trying to get him out of office by any means possible. Now, that's not to say that I don't believe Clinton lied about a number of things during that process, but that had little to do in terms of my investigation into the Merletti aspect, where he was accused of going to the White House and, as I told you before, removing Clinton and arranging all these meetings in hotels. They never once found any evidence to this. And as a matter of fact, during my interview with Merletti, he discredits the whole thing by saying, even though I'm the Secret Service director, I cannot go to the White House and remove the president. I have, wherever the president goes, there is a contingent of Secret Service agents that go with him wherever he goes. And there are no orders that he could give to change this. So Merletti was describing to me this whole process, breaking it down and saying, well, all right, I've got him in the back of the car and I take him out. So do we park on the street and then we walk into the hotel together and people don't notice that I'm walking into a hotel with President Clinton? And what do I put the blanket over his head so people don't see this? It was just a completely ridiculous scenario.
Okay, so the takeaway from the book is that the whole thing was based on a complete fabricated story.
Correct. And of course now they're using the impeachment process, in my opinion, on Biden as purely as a political ploy. The two impeachments that Trump was up for were clearly based on facts from the the January 6th commission that was put together, and they put together all these different facts from interviews and documents and everything. But now, sadly, there's a contingent of Republicans that just want to do payback, and that's what they're lining up. And it's sad. It's a sad commentary about Washington in general. And I know there are some very good people there that are working hard to try to work for the people like they were elected to do. But all of this stuff is a side distraction. It's something that shouldn't take place. Impeachment should be reserved for the purposes of, high crimes and misdemeanors, actually, that were committed during the Trump administration and during Watergate.
Well, I agree that it's just lessening the significance of it at this point.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is, and especially about the book that I think people will learn, is that in fighting and battling independent counsel Kenneth Starr, Merletti demonstrated his commitment and courage to stand up for what he believed were the right things, or what he knew were the right things that Secret Service agents were doing. And, Douglas, courage is a word that we don't hear much anymore. And character is certainly something we don't hear much anymore. And American character has really taken a big hit in the last several years in terms of integrity. And that's not what we used to stand for. We used to fight wars for moral reasons. We used to stand up to tyrants for moral reasons. Now we seem to be at war. The country seems to be at war with itself for reasons that, frankly, I just don't understand. But Merletti's story, to me, resonates from the fact that here was a man, an individual, who put his job on the line, who put his reputation on the line to stand up and do the right thing for the Secret Service. This was all about politics intruding into the mission of the Secret Service. That's what Merletti was fighting against. It wasn't about necessarily Clinton. It was about the presidency as a whole. If they could do that in this circumstance, then they could do this to other presidents.
Well, I think integrity is a good word to use as well. It was the integrity of his job, his office, the Secret Service as an agency.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Jim, we got to wind this down. We are out of time. Thanks so much for coming on. My guest is Jim Lichtman, and the book is called Trust and Confidence. The book is out.
The book is available on a variety of different sources, including Amazon and Nook and Google Play and all those different places. So I hope people will read it. It's a very simple, very straightforward book to read. It's nonpartisan. It's just about the facts.
Okay. When did the book come out? When did it release?
It came out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, all right. Great. Last
Yeah.
question. Do you have a website you want to give out?
Yes, it's ethicsstupid.com. It's ethicsstupid. Yeah, I've been writing commentary since 2008. I write commentaries usually twice a week, and it's under the title "It's Ethics Stupid." So, yeah,
Ethicsstupid.com. Okay.
yeah.
All right, Jim. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was interesting. Best of luck with the book. Hope it does well.
Thanks so much, Douglas.